I said, this is not the biggest comeback in U.S. history, as J.D. Vance had said that night. I said it was the biggest comeback in the history of the world. And he said, he laughed, but he said, it's not a comeback.
I'm Andrew Neil. This is Times Radio, live from New York City. I'm joined now by Chris Ruddy, Chief Executive of Newsmax Media and a longtime friend of Donald Trump. He speaks to him often. For full disclosure, I should add that Chris is also a friend of mine, so he clearly moves in elevated circles. Chris, welcome to the show.
Only elevated circles with you, Andrew.
Quite right, Chris. So what's Mr. Trump's post-election mood, Chris?
I think he's tired but excited. We spoke right after his victory speech on late Tuesday night. It was over three in the morning. He got in the car. We had a phone call. It was about 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And he said that he was just really, it was an incredible campaign for him. He's very excited. He has so many things he wants to do. And we talked about the historic nature of what he had done. It was sort of interesting because I said this is not the biggest comeback in U.S. history, as J.D. Vance had said that night. I said it was the biggest comeback in the history of the world. And he said, he laughed, but he said, it's not a comeback. And I said, it's not a comeback. He said, no, I never went away. I'm not coming back.
Well,
and it was interesting. There's some truth to it, but also it shows you how he likes to think of things and his own unique spin on things. But we both agreed that it was a very, very big victory. I mean, Democrats, I know, just can't believe the level. And I think there's going to be some serious reconsideration of their approach.
Well, we've been trying to dig into that, but I have to say, so far, without much success. Every time you ask them to, how you're going to rebuild the Democrat Party, they just have another go at Trump. Tell me, is Mr. Trump, is he a different person in private from the persona that we all know in public?
Well, I would say that in private, he's pretty much like he is in public, but I think that also there's different sides to him. When you see him in private, I think you realize a lot of his stuff and his shtick is a little more theatrical and rhetorical. Like if he says something like, we're going to knock the hell out of them, he's not saying that he's going to go over and physically punch the person. But that's the sort of shtick he does, New York style talk.
Right.
And in private, you sort of pick up on it really quick and you realize that's just for effect. In public, when he's giving a speech and he's the guy up there standing on the podium and he's saying these things, sometimes people find it quite threatening. And they don't realize, I think, that it's his humor, it's his hyperbole. But and so I've always found him pretty consistent as a person. But I understand his approach, and I know that I see through some of it.
At 78, he's the oldest person ever to be elected president. What are his energy levels like?
I can't keep up with him, and I'm 59. So I it's just
so
nobody can keep up. Nobody can keep up with this guy. Think about the story I just told you. I mean, he's been going to rallies for days, just nonstop. And then when he's not at a rally, he's on the phone. He's contacting, he's talking to people. And those when he did 3 or 4 or 5 rallies a day in those closing days. Then he goes into a election night. He's at the election night party all night, sitting there with a few hundred friends in Mar-a-Lago. And then he goes to the convention center. There's thousands of people there. It's 3 a.m. He gives a speech. And then he's on the phone with me a few minutes later. I mean, what type of world leader has this type of capacity to just engage? He's a very, and you've met him, so he's an extremely engaging guy. I've known a lot of great politicians. I've known Bill Clinton, who I think is off the charts as rock star, as a political figure. Right. But Trump takes the cake. I mean, nobody else has this level of engagement. I have dealt with his businesses. I've known him for almost 30 years. You go into his buildings or his properties, the lowest level people know him and love him. The janitor, the supervisors, the managers, the vice president. He knows everybody. He comments, they all connect with him. And so you've seen this, and very few people have the charisma that this guy has. Whether you like his politics or not, you have to give him the credit that he has tremendous charisma.
Will he go after his enemies?
Well, he has stated that he plans to do that. I hope he does not. I personally think it would be a good thing. And I think somebody who unifies the country more. He's given hints that he might take a different approach. I mean, he's talked about pardoning Hunter Biden, for instance. I think that would be a very good step. I think this politics of reprisal, they keep saying, well, Trump's going to do this and that, and he may. I don't have a crystal ball here, but I can tell you the Democrats were pretty vindictive when they were in power. I mean, four or five legal cases around the country against the former president on rather flimsy, so flimsy that all of these cases, it looks like the latest reports I'm reading, and we have some discussion on Newsmax.com about it today, that they'll all be dismissed. They'll all just go away and disappear.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have serious legal cases, that doesn't happen unless there's no reason for them.
Give us a couple of the big names to look out for in his administration.
I would start with Rick Grinnell. I think he's the leading candidate for Secretary of State.
He was the
Susie
ambassador to Germany.
Yes. Susie Wiles, I think, is excellent. She'll have some role, maybe chief of staff. I don't know. I'm not privy. I don't really, even though I've known the president for a long time, I don't talk about personnel issues with him. And I'm not involved in the campaign. I don't say that just flippantly. There's been all these investigations that have come up where it's emails and text messages, and there's really no contact with me on any of these people and dealing with these issues. So I try to do keep that Chinese wall. But you're asking me what maybe I'm hearing as a journalist, and that's fine. Fred Fleitz was a chief of staff in the National Security Council. I think he could have a cabinet position in one of the intelligence jobs. Homan is considered for Department of Homeland Security. General Kellogg's being considered, I think, for National Security Advisor. He has a lot of good people out there. I know there's a lot of people battling for the Treasury position, a lot of wealthy people, business people. So that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Matt Whitaker, I think, is a consideration for Attorney General. He's already held the job. He's a known quantity. He's considered pretty moderate. So I think, it's going to be an interesting Trump's. So I think the standards are going to be loyalty to him and people he knows, where in the first administration, he picked a lot of people that had brand names that he didn't really know.
Yes. It's just broken that Mr. Trump has spoken to President Macron of France before he's spoken to Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom. And it plays to the next question I wanted to ask you. The British government is, I think, a little bit apprehensive because of some stupid remarks once made by the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, about Mr. Trump and the fact that the Labour Party staffers campaigned for Harris in this election. Will he bear a grudge on this, or will he forgive and forget?
No, not at all. As you know, I've had fairly close relations with Britain through the years. I went to the London School of Economics,
Indeed.
and I knew you before Donald Trump became president. But I think that we've talked about David Lammy. He likes David Lammy. He knows that he's critical of him in the past. So I don't think that's a bar. They had a very good meeting with Keir Starmer at the meeting in Trump Tower during the UN week.
Right.
They like each other. I think Trump and his campaign, I think there's certain people that probably want to rile him up too, have made an issue of the labor people coming over. We all know that this happens. Conservative Party people send people over, and this is a common practice. I think what probably got his goat was it's a sitting Labor government. So he thinks that the political parties being controlled and being told by the Labor government. So there might be some misunderstanding. I don't believe that this is anything that will cause any significant harm. President Trump likes Britain. He has very fond, sentimental.
His mother is Scottish, of course.
Yes, she was born in the Hebrides, and he always felt she was connected to Britain as a British citizen. And he wanted businesses for 20 years in Brittany, and he has great golf courses at Turnberry and Aberdeen.
And,
And
and maybe Chris, and I understand he's going to open another golf course in Scotland somewhere, but maybe, Chris, it was Labour sending people over to help Harris in Pennsylvania that was the swing factor that got Pennsylvania for Mr. Trump.
may be true. That may be true. That would have turned enough votes.
It certainly would.
It seems
All right, Chris,
like
we better leave it there. We run out of time. It's coming up to the hour. But I thank you, as I know it's a busy time for you. Chris Ruddy there, joining me on Times Radio.